Hello and welcome to Carnivorist Chats. My name is James, your host. I started this podcast to help other folks share their own healing stories and to interview thought leaders and experts in the carnivore, keto, and low oxalate space. Before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to Equip Foods and the Carnivore Bar. As an affiliate, you can use the link in the show notes to get a discount on their products when you check out using the code Carnivorist. Thanks in advance for listening, subscribing, and any likes or shares. And now, on with the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Carnivorist Chats. It's episode 55. I can't believe it. I want to say thank you to all you listeners and watchers on YouTube that have been joining me on this crazy journey called life. I'm so grateful for you all, and I'm even more grateful today because I've got a chance to reconnect with one of my best friends in the world, Alex Ball, returning for her fourth episode in our series together. Alex, welcome back to Carnivorous Chats.
My heart is like about to burst. I'm so excited to be here, James. Thank you I can't even believe you would be willing to have me on a fourth time. It is an honor, seriously. And boy, it's been a journey. We've covered some pretty heavy hitter topics, ex-veganism, working on a health, journey, transitioning to carnivore diet, animal-based diets, going through crazy transitional moves and things. We've both been through the ringer with a lot of different life scenarios. So it's just great to be back with you and catching up from where we left off.
The honor's all mine, Alex. It's a joy every time we connect here and do these, and I think it's helping a tremendous amount of people, so I'm so excited to have you back. Let me just preface this before we jump right in. Folks, if you want to follow Alex's journey from the beginning, episode 27, as she just talked about, is when we really talked about our connection on having been vegans for many years and how our health went off a cliff. So check out that one. Episode 34 then detailed a lot of the stuff we went through in terms of the physical and mental symptoms, a lot of stuff surrounding dental and digestion in that episode, if you recall, Alex. And then 47, which was our most recent episode, gets into your CIRS diagnosis a little bit more, which was a really profound thing. And I'm so glad we're able to dig in a little bit more on the CIRS today. We got some questions submitted from the followers on Instagram, so we're going to get into that. But I wonder, Alex, if we can start out, as I mentioned, folks, go back and check those episodes if you want some more details on the beginnings of the journey. But for this particular moment, let's just talk about giving them a little bit of background, and I think it will segue nicely into where we are now on how you first started to notice that there might be something more than just the diet, that there were symptoms coming on. I know we touched on it last time, but for those listeners that didn't get a chance to hear it.
So I think it was a couple of things, but the main one being that the carnivore diet and honestly just bringing quality animal foods back into my life after being vegan for 10 years and just destroying my health, I realized that it was by far the best I had felt in years that I can remember after having so many different issues. But something which, again, I'll reference Nutrition with Judy, that she said, and it still says time and time again, is that it's an incredible tool, but it's a tool at the end of the day that may not be the cure-all. It may be a massive help. And again, it's something that I'm implementing right now to help me on my current journey, but it may not be able to cure, especially if you've got other issues going on that are extensive, maybe are genetic or are something you've been dealing with chronically for years and years and years. And so I experienced a pretty significant hospitalization in the fall. I had to get several blood transfusions. I had severe anemia and all of these issues that were coming back time and time again to making me look through the timeline of my life, and where I had significant health concerns coming up time and time again that I couldn't heal. And no matter if I went on like a different, protocol, if I saw another doctor for the 100th time, or even completely changed my diet and was really strict or not strict, any version of that, I was constantly coming back to certain issues that it seemed like my body just couldn't surpass a hurdle. I couldn't get past. I kept on just hiccuping along my journey. And I was sitting there and I realized I'm not at optimal health. And I was really hard on myself for a while. I was upset, I was down, and I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn from here. I thought I was doing everything right, bringing animal foods back in. And leading a healthy lifestyle, exercising, doing all the things we're supposed to do. And yet I feel like I'm dying and I'm in a hospital right now. And so I had done extensive research on CIRS, and it basically was like a slap in the face of an awakening of this could very likely be my problem that I'm facing here, because every symptom was me to a T of all these random symptoms all over the body and mind, physically and mentally, that again, I would be seemingly unrelated, and yet I was having them all at once. So everything from severe itchiness and burning skin, feeling like I was on fire, insomnia, digestive issues, neuropathy. I mean, I could go on forever with the laundry list of issues and symptoms that, again, they either, when I would go to a doctor, they would want to isolate and treat just that one issue and say that that has nothing to do with your thyroid, or, you're having brain fog, well, just sleep more, and then just dumbing down issues that, again, I said, there's got to be something where, again, this is a whole body is out of and is completely imbalanced here. It's clear. So finally, I got testing done, and I did 2 waves of testing. This is something I would do differently going forward. I would have gone with more extensive testing in the beginning. After failing the VCS test, which is, again, kind of the first one to basically tell you, you've tested positive for CIRS, for mold exposure, or one of the main, there's like endotoxins, actinos, or biotoxins. There's a lot of different things that can obviously be the culprit. But after failing that, I would have gone into some more extensive testing that I found with my CIRS practitioner, rather than waiting and just kind of stringing along one test after another, because I had a pretty long hang time where I was not sure really what to do based off of the results I was getting. But finally, after the more extensive testing, I realized that my MSH levels were scary low. I mean, tanked. And that's one of the surefire symptoms or markers for CIRS is low MSH. And along with that, I had a extensive Neuroquant MRI done, which showed brain atrophy in 9 areas of my brain, which was very scary to see and to talk with my practitioner through, of showing the brain damage that had happened, where basically if I had continued on the trajectory I was on, I would be a dementia patient by the time I hit 40 severely. So very scary, and it hit hard, and was, again, finally the answers that I've been waiting on for so long, of still like, well, am I crazy? Is this really CIRS? Is it, and then finally having that imaging and that testing done, it showed that my body kind of lit up like a Christmas tree with these issues. What I did find out since that was that I also had been misdiagnosed all throughout my life as hyperthyroid, when I'm actually severely hypothyroid. So for the first time in my life, I'm currently working to help alleviate the hypothyroidism that has been my issue, along with, again, some other issues, all brought on by the stress inflammatory nature of CIRS, that I was either not being treated for properly, or, again, was being isolated as one variable of just, oh, you just happen to have this. So long story short, that was a very eye-opening experience, realizing that, again, you have to do a lot of your own due diligence and work, and why it's also so important to find a true CIRS Shoemaker certified protocol practitioner, because a lot of times you will finally getting the proper testing is the only way to truly start addressing the issues at hand. Basically, A, B to C was the hospitalization and realization that CIRS was at play here, and I needed to do official testing. Then the VCS, and going through a laundry list of tests too slow, when I should have really just done kind of the big, like, more extensive ones I needed to do after failing the VCS test, which is the gold standard again. And then to where we are now, which is actually beginning those steps of the Shoemaker Protocol after having the answers I was waiting on.
Alex, thank you so much for that. Now, the listeners, For those that are new to this and on episode 55 that haven't had a chance, I just want to go into a couple of high level stuff before I ask you another question. And that is CIRS is short for chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And again, thank you, Judy Cho, for her advocacy in this area, because she was the first to say, okay, I have people on the carnivore diet that are still not getting well, where the carnivore is the greatest elimination diet you can do, especially if you do lion, which is beef, salt, and water. I mean, you can't really bear it down to any more than that. And she
No,
still
it's as
had,
simple as it gets.
yeah, and she still had folks that weren't getting well, like yourself, going, okay. So she started to really dig into the research and try and figure this stuff out. And God bless her for doing that, because she came upon this CIRS and Dr. Richie Shoemaker and his protocol. And CIRS is just that, as I mentioned, this chronic inflammatory response to something which we now know are biotoxins. And biotoxins can come from parasites, which we both had, Lyme,
Yes.
mold, which you had, and I know I had in my journey, bacteria, and even algae can be a biotoxin
Algae,
illness.
it's wild.
It's crazy. And so what
Yeah.
this does is it gets your immune system off kilter, where it's in the constant fight or flight, and it just gets dysregulated. Now, also, the listeners may have just heard you talking about MSH, that is melanocyte stimulating hormone, for those that don't know, and that comes from the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus. And this is where CIRS can dysregulate your hormones as well, can it, Alex? I mean, it just affects so much. It makes you feel awful. So it's no wonder both you and we're going to get into the limbic system retraining too, because I had that and I didn't even know it was part of the CIRS protocol. I was doing it just to try and
Yes.
fix my brain back in the day.
Yes.
Crazy, crazy. Alex, let's dig in a little bit more and go into the Q&A quickly, and then we'll go into some more about the testing and dig into the testing as well. One of the first questions that was asked, and I think is appropriate at this juncture to ask you, is, did your vegan diet, you think, contribute to your CIRS diagnosis now? What are your thoughts on that?
So I would say, I think that, again, CIRS is sort of a culmination, again, of just stress piling on the body and piling from all these different variables, usually for most people, to where the body just is overwhelmed and cannot handle the burden anymore, the toxic burden anymore. I think absolutely, while, again, the vegan diet wasn't to necessarily blame for the CIRS, it was a massive variable in increasing the stress and the inflammatory nature in my body for years and years and years, to where, again, it was getting no proper nutrition and minerals, vitamins, all of that, and anything to properly, again, give my body what it needed to be able to handle this toxic burden it was facing. A prime example being that all through my middle school and high school years, I think I touched on this on some of our episodes, I was put on rounds and rounds and rounds of antibiotics, and my gut was destroyed. And I was also exposed to staph. I had terrible staph infections, chronic bronchitis, all of these infections. So again, this toxic burden building up, this stress building up on my body. And at the same time, having a diet that was just depleting me, making me anemic, causing low iron, low B12, no severe vitamin D deficiency, all of these things. And so all it did was increase the stress and the burden on my body, and not only take away and deplete from my body, but increase with oxalates. I mean, all these other variables, again, that my body had to deal with. The roughage, the fiber, all of the different, again, this sort of toxic soup of stuff that I was putting into my body as a high carb, low fat vegan, eating, anywhere between dead serious 300 to 500 grams of fiber a day, of just carbs. And that being raw salads, smoothies with kale, and just a whole jar of cinnamon, every supplement under the sun, almond milk, all these nuts and everything. And you think about, again, a healthy body alone trying to digest all of that, much less a body that has a distressed gut from antibiotic and severe infection, chronic infection issues, trying to take on that burden. So it was year after year after year of giving myself sort of this punch of infection coming from one end, and resistance and gut distress from all of these, again, antibiotics, and then boom, pummeling it from the other side with a nutrition nightmare. So yes, if people are concerned that CIRS may be an issue for them, or just experiencing any type of histamine issues or high inflammatory symptoms in the body, I think that honestly, the worst thing you could do for yourself is to follow a vegan diet. It's the absolute worst step you could take for your health. And that is why a lot of people who have CIRS are carnivore or follow a very heavy meat-based, low-fiber diet. Is, again, you're trying to give your body the most bioavailable, the most concentrated nutrients possible to help in that healing process without having to deal with things like oxalates and lectins and heavy amounts of fiber and all this roughage, when it doesn't have the energy and the capability to handle that in this moment. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone has to be carnivore forever, but you can't, again, get to that healing point that you're hoping for and aiming for most of the time. Most bodies can't. They're so, again, stressed and inflamed from this chronic exposure and all these issues that something like a vegan, especially high fiber, high carb, low fat style, just makes that so much harder. You're already starting with a foot out the door of hurting yourself further.
Completely agree, Alex, and very, very well said for those folks that are thinking, okay, well, what should I be putting in my mouth rather? And we'll get into a little bit more updates on our dietary choices this past few months since we last chatted. But it's really interesting because you hit the nail on the head when I talk to experts in the area like Dr. Chafee and Sally Norton with oxalates and Monique Addinger with oxalates and histamine, tracing everything back to toxicities, which you talked about, and malnutrition. And those are the things where we can really look at how the advent of modern diseases came about. And what do both of those things eventually lead to? Inflammation. And we get back to the root cause healing, which is what Judy Cho, again, thank you, Judy, tries to get to, root cause healing. Let's dig into this now, Alex. And I'd like you, if you could, to talk in a little bit more detail about the testing side of CIRS, because it can be a little bit confusing. You dropped a word called the VCS test, and then another test that was called the Neuroquant. I wonder if you could let people know the sort of way they should go about it if they suspect they might have CIRS and what the testing entails.
So for me, I was trying to, on just being very transparent, try to go the most affordable route possible, because for a lot of people, CIRS, one of the biggest stressors is you say, okay, all of this testing, potential having to relocate, all of the binders, all the supplements, this is so expensive and I can't afford to do this. And so you get paralyzed again by that fear of, I don't know what to do because I can't afford to go through this whole protocol. And so I was, thankfully, I'm so grateful to the practitioner that I'm with right now, because I was very honest with him about that concern for me, that, again, I don't know, is it possible? Do I have to do every single test under the sun? Because I don't know. Again, I know most of these insurance won't cover and all of this. And I so appreciate him, because he said, I will do sort of the bare minimum, because there are certain things that the test won't lie. I mean, it won't be the sort of vague, maybe it's CIRS, maybe it's not. We can boil it down to a couple of things. Biggest thing for me was that Neuroquant. The reason why, I'll back up, but the first was beginning from square one is anybody can take the visual I can never say it right.
It's a visual contrast sensitivity test.
The VCS test, and that is online. It's accessible to anybody. You do like a $15 donation, and that will give you a 99%, again, pass or fail, if you have CIRS or not. And then if you based on the visual cues that it gives you, if you are having what signs are of brain issues, neurological issues based off of biotoxin buildup in your body. And again, these inflammatory markers being high. So when that came back and I was just lit up like a Christmas tree, failed it 3 times, that's when I decided, okay, I need to do more extensive testing, but what does that look like? Because there are so many different routes you can go with that. You can go with the Genie, you can go with all of these different genetic tests, all these different hormone panels, all of that. I did end up doing some of those, again, to get some more detailed understanding, to go figure out again my hypothyroidism and all of that. But the number one thing I sought out was the Neuroquant MRI. The reason why, and that is different from a regular MRI, is it is the only way to show if there has been shown brain atrophy and damage because of mold exposure or because of endotoxin, biotoxin buildup so bad that it's literally caused damage to your brain. And there was a couple of reasons I wanted that so bad. One, because then it could rule out a lot of other variables, things like Lyme, other culprits for what could be causing my issues. Because there's a lot of other issues in the health world that could have been causing some of my inflammation, but again, they would not be causing the brain issues that CIRS causes. So that answered that question for me a lot when I had that MRI finally done. And again, 9 different areas of my brain lit up with atrophy or damage that had been happening, which again, for me, being 26 years old, that was a slap in the face and was something that made me want to cry pretty hard and freak out at first, especially when going through it with my practitioner. He said that I was on track to basically have severe dementia by the time I was 40 if I had not begun working through a protocol to help remediate the CIRS. And this made a lot of sense to me because, again, I had seen such a alarming exponential increase in my brain fog, lack of sharpness and clarity, memory. All of these things began to just decrease so much, not only over the past couple of years, but so recently within the past year with all the other inflammation I was experiencing, kind of, again, this toxic soup storm where I knew that there had to be more to it. If people have failed the VCS test, I highly recommend trying, again, to start with potentially nailing down that Neuroquant MRI. It is hard to come by because, again, you have to make sure it's not just a standard MRI. There's only certain locations that will do it, but it is the sort of foolproof way to know if you have damage from CIRS and that chronic exposure, and can kind of help you bypass a lot of other tests where you won't get a definitive answer. It could still be other variables playing into your health issues and not officially CIRS. So that was a big door open for me in terms of being able to fully confirm that now it's time to begin on this protocol.
This is going to be super helpful for so many folks, Alex. I really appreciate you sharing this because this whole process can seem very, very overwhelming for someone that has been in your shoes, or is it just finding out now like you did? And it's a lot to take on mentally, especially when you're in a brain fog state and trying to make sense of all these things. Like I just said, like Neuroquant, what does that mean?
What's that? And yeah.
What is this, the VCS test? What does that mean? So I'm so glad, number one, that you found a practitioner, and number two, that you figured out what was going on with you. And I should have put those back, reflipped those, number one, you found out what was going on with you. And number two, that you found a practitioner that was well-versed in the protocol. But this leads us right into the next question, which is going to be so interesting because you and I chatted offline about this. And the human nature is to really want to go full bore into anything. When you figure out that you have toxins inside of you, ask me about my oxalate journey and I'll tell you why I went so wrong.
Yeah.
So the question the person asked are you having side effects from the protocol? And the answer was yes. But I want to let the folks know that if you want to understand the protocol in further detail, Alex put us onto this group on Instagram last time, the CIRS group. So helpful. We just talked about the diagnosis, so she's going to go into what happened in the foundation stage and what happens if you skip that stage.
The Shoemaker Protocol, again, it's really 12 steps actually, but they boil it down more. And I'm so thankful again to JC and Barbara with the CIRS group. They have a podcast I really want to emphasize for anybody who is just trying to get this broken down more simply. The podcasts aren't these 2-hour-long episodes about actinos that you basically just don't even know where to go from there after listening to. They are short 20-minute segments that, again, just break this into chunks that, again, feel so much more manageable, where you feel like you can take an actionable step afterwards. But for me, after diagnosis, I knew two major issues were at play. One is that I was in a current environment, which I am still in, which has mold issues. So I have biotoxin exposure I'm still dealing with. What's interesting is that it's actually not fully my current biotoxin exposure that's actually caused so much of my CIRS issues. It's actually been from some other years back in college when I was, again, exposed to toxic water damaged buildings and was living in them during college years. And then combining that again with what we've already talked about previously, the chronic staph infections, the antibiotics, all of those other things have very much contributed to where I am today with CIRS issues. It's not just my current living situation. However, the thing is that they always tell you in step 2, which is sort of the foundation phase, you need to get your body right and you need to get in a place to where it is calm enough to be able to handle step 3, which is the binders. That is where you're doing well-colored cholestyramine. And these binders are very strong and potent and powerful because what are they trying to do? They are trying to remove these layers upon layers upon layers of toxins, biotoxins, endotoxins, actinos that have been building up in your body for years and are so ingrained in you. And it's like, again, trying to wipe that slate clean, and it is incredibly it's a lot for the body to handle, which it's already a body that's sick. And on top of that, has a lot of inflammation. And so people can expect very extreme side effects with the binders if they don't do step 2 properly. And the number one thing with step 2 is getting your environment right. And also, again, getting your body right to be able to handle those binders. So I wanted to, of course, get my foundation right, get on the binders quickly. I want to heal as fast as possible, which is how a lot of people with CIRS feel as well. You're just so tired of being in pain or feeling sick all the time or fatigued or your body being on fire and your brain feeling like mush, and so but I too quickly wanted to move through that process. And I had some very, very strong and severe and painful side effects. I did try to go onto the cholestyramine after only about a month of trying to remediate and clean my current living situation, and then also doing some work with helping my thyroid by going on proper glandular thyroid for my hypothyroidism, and then doing some calming work, some limbic system work. But I wasn't doing nearly enough of those things, and I also wasn't giving myself time to really work through progress through my thyroid medication, increasing the limbic system retraining, getting my lipids, my healthy omega-3s, all of that stuff that works into healthy brain and cellular function. Against all of that support, I was not prioritizing enough to be able to handle the binders. And then the final part of that as well with step 2 was I had not done the extensive enough testing to really see the extent of what I was dealing with in my environment. And again, I learned through some podcasts, the CIRS group one, and then 2 more resources I want to go ahead and just throw out there for people that I think are immensely valuable with, again, trying to understand your environment there's the Better Health Guy podcast, which I found and was a wealth of knowledge to me. There's an episode on there with Larry Walsh, and he talks about actinos, understanding that, again, a lot of the toxic burden is actually just on you all the time and helping to remove that. But that podcast, and then obviously survivingmold.com is always an incredible resource. But it was through that I learned about the I need to look to my notes to make sure I say it right. The envirobiomes Hertzme and Actindo with endotoxin test. Essentially, it's the envirobiomics number 7, which JC and Barbara said on one of their podcast episodes. It sounds like a drink, like a fancy martini, but that test really helps you understand the ratio, the level of mold versus other biotoxins, or other toxins like actinos and endotoxins in your home and understanding those ratios, which I had no clue what they were. So I didn't really gain true insight into what the situation in my environment actually looked like and whether I could remediate or where to remediate, or like what all these actual specific variables were related to my environment until I got that test done. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to have that specific of a test, but the EnviroBiomics testing, which is either the Hertz Me Too, which is this test that I had done. There's also the ERMI. Those are the two main ones that are the most highly recommended and proven. The Shoemaker Protocol, I had originally gotten a lesser version of one of those that was not a true Hertz Me Too. And again, I wasn't seeing the whole foundation laid of what was going on. And thankfully today, again, now I have a clearer picture of what I'm dealing with. So I know which actionable steps I can take actually in my physical environment that will be effective and not just keep me running in circles. And then I also was awakened to the fact that, wow, I need to do a couple of things slower to really be able to get onto the binders effectively and either not have terrible side effects from them or them not work at all and just keep me running in circles. And those two things were finally addressing my nervous system, calming my nervous system, limbic system retraining, which we can get into a little bit of what that is, because a lot of people are like, what is that? I was like, what is that? I'd never heard of it. And also doing a lot of work to really support myself at the cellular and cell membrane, phospholipid. I can go into some of the things I'm taking, but really getting that omega-3 to 6 balance right, some things like that to support myself at the cellular level. So again, the body is capable of taking on such strong binders that can cause a lot of hard side effects and also just keeping your body so inflamed and unable to progress forward.
People forget, like, it is relatively easy for us to ingest these toxins, whether they're
Oh,
oxalates,
absolutely.
biotoxins, the parasites getting in us through food or inhaling mold spores. But the body has to work so hard to be able to get them out, especially
Out.
when the immune system is dysregulated and our gut, there's inflammation everywhere. I mean, I just think about how I went full bore into the low ox diet, and then Sally Norton was like, hey, slow down. These
Slow down, slow down. Yes.
Yeah, I know you got excited, but you just got to slow down because it takes a lot of work and it can be very dangerous if you go too fast, too quickly. And you hit the nail on the head. People have to remember, we in the parasite world, when we first started, we thought about the binders, the typical ones, didn't we, Alex? Like charcoal. No,
Charcoal, and we did
oh,
those.
bentonite
Clay,
clay. Yeah.
clay. I was just about to, yep.
But they have to understand that Dr. Shoemaker found these by accident, the cholestyramine and
And the
Welchol, which are our
Welchol.
cholesterol-lowering medications, but he found the efficacy in this protocol that they worked with helping. And that goes back to talk about what we're going to get into next, which is the importance of this foundation stage, which you just highlighted. I think what we'll do is we'll leave the rest of the stages for as you progress in our next episodes, Alex. Let's really hone in on this where you are now rather than looking to the future, because I don't want to get people thinking about the future until they deal with the present, which is what we're really hammering on right now. It's such an important point. The question that tied into, your side effects from the protocol, which you mentioned, was, do you think that the carnivore diet is helping? And then the other question that came in relation to the carnivore diet was, what did your doctor think about you being on the carnivore diet?
Well, so with both of those things, it's all back again to that foundation, building the best foundation I can before I ever try to progress forward more. And that even goes back to a saying that I've said many times on on this podcast, which is healing is a journey. It takes time. Don't try to rush it. You need to have tools in your tool belt that you're constantly building, and do not rush the process. Everybody's timeline is different. And I had to really go back to that, which I've told myself before, but sometimes we need our own medicine, a little bit of a rude awakening from ourselves. And so that was me 100%. I had to go back to my own words and say, wow, okay, I tried to speed through something and it's actually hurting me more now. I've got to build a firm foundation. And there were several parts of that I knew were crucial. One was dealing with my nervous system on just high alert and my vagus system my vagus nerve completely just out of kilter. And I knew that was happening because I was starting to experience some of my old symptoms from when I was in sort of that fight or flight stage, which was I was grinding my teeth again at night. Like, just, I could feel so much tension in the body. I was no longer taking deep breaths ever. I would sit back and realize that I had gone through the whole day. Even I teach yoga on the side, and even during class, like, not taking deep breaths anymore. I'd been just like with my lungs only filling up with about an eighth of air that they should be with every breath. And I was like clenching my fists all the time. I just realized that all of this tension was building up and building up and building up. And I had not seen myself doing that in quite a while. And I knew it was because, again, my body was feeling like it couldn't handle all of this and was overwhelmed. And that's when I started looking into the limbic system and retraining. The limbic system is essentially, it's sort of your emotional brain. And so even if you're not necessarily in the environment or place where the triggers happened that may have caused your CIRS or your other health issues you may be experiencing, your mind, your brain is convinced that you're still in that environment and it's still fighting something, even if that's something invisible. It's convinced. And so it's going to keep going into fight or flight mode time and time again, because it's being triggered sort of in a PTSD way of, it's afraid that it's either your body doesn't feel safe. And it's the whole goal is you're trying to get yourself to feel safe enough to be able to heal, to be able to take on the binders. And I realized that it was things like, every time I would take the binder or even some of the supplements I'm on right now as part of this protocol, I was so scared taking them that automatically in my brain, I was so convinced that the side effects were going to be so bad. I was already setting myself up to not respond well. Again, never telling my body it was in a safe place. I would look at my, ceiling going to bed at night and say, well, I don't have this place fully mold remedied yet, so I'm breathing in horrible air. And well, yes, I have one air filter, but I don't think it's filtering my place enough, so I can't breathe deep. And I realized I was, again, telling my nervous system and my brain time and time again, I was giving it the message, you are not safe. And your body will not heal if it does not feel safe. You could be in paradise. And a lot of people message me when they see my Instagram and they see my photos and they say, you live in paradise. And I always tell them, again, you can be in the most beautiful, serene environment ever. And if you don't have your health and you aren't strong in who you are and everything, it does not matter. You could be in an igloo, and if you are healthy and strong and also just believe in yourself, you will do great. But it just doesn't matter. You have to have your health and you have to be your own advocate. And so I realized I was sabotaging myself. And I would never be able to move on to step 3 if I didn't build a foundation of both healing through believing in myself that I had the capability of healing, doing this limbic retraining of showing myself I can deep breathe, I am in a safe environment, I can heal, doing some of this work. And then also, again, handling some of the things to set my body actually physically in a safe place. So supporting my mitochondrial function, my cellular function, all this I'm focusing so much on too, because our brains, all of the cellular function of the brain and the phospholipids. So really working on, again, working with this proper omega-3 to 6 balance, lipids, getting them in the right place so that I can handle the binders again. And also just taking the step back of taking more time to properly test and get answers on my place to know that I am doing the right actual steps to my environment to make it safe. And I, have the solutions in place now to where I really believe it and I'm not questioning, like, am I in the same place? Are the remediation steps that I'm taking actually helping? And so it was those 3 major things, making sure and understanding where I was at with my environment, taking a step back to get my body physically ready through things like the proper lipid profiling, and then a little bit more of extensive testing. And then finally, also the limbic retraining of reminding myself, you're in a safe place, you're on a protocol, you have a plan, take it step by step, and bringing that peace and that calm into every part of my life, whether it's when I was sitting down to a meal so that I wouldn't be, again, my vagus nerve completely out of whack, calming things down to where I would be able to receive the food well, things like that. And I know I steered off of carnivore, but to just finish, part of that also was taking a full step back of, I asked my practitioner with all of this when I was regrouping and the foundation phase, are you okay with the fact that I eat a animal-based diet? And he said, well, have you ever tried carnivore? And I said, yes, I was carnivore for almost 10 months back and an earlier time of the year. And then I went away from it to more of like a ketovore approach, but I still eat very meat, animal product heavy. And he said, go back to carnivore and do it now, this instant, please. I beg you. And that's very much, it was a much more dramatic and surprising answer to me. And the reason he said that was, he said, there is nothing that I want you to do, again, that is heightening the inflammatory response, the energy, all the taxing nature that your body's already having to take on right now. I don't want your body to have to handle fiber. I want it to be in a state where it's getting in the most nutrients it can possible without having to deal with digestive distress, discomfort, all of these things where it's not necessarily that you have to be carnivore forever, but in a place where it can handle. And again, it needs the most nutrition possible. And for me, that was no problem because I've always been either, again, at the stage, either animal-based, very close to carnivore or at carnivore. And so since then, it has been back now a month pretty much of full carnivore with, again, a few spices and things, some coconut here and there. And that probably will be winding down. And also along with, we're going to talk about calming the dairy down. But I have noticed, again, some tremendous improvement from eliminating some of the plant fiber that I had brought back in and forgetting how much distress that had caused me in the past, and especially with the stage I'm at now.
Wow, there's so much to unpack here. What I want to do is give you a chance to catch your breath, all pun intended, Alex, for a second, and just let the listeners know who they know my journey. They know, and as I mentioned earlier, that I unknowingly, nothing about CIRS at the time, did the limbic system retraining through Annie Hopper's method, which is dynamic neural retraining system. She has that, and that is retrainingthebrain.com. I'll put it in the show notes. There's also the Gupta method, which is very well known, but I have experience with Annie's method, which I found very useful. And the reason I did that back then was because I was reacting to scents. I had trouble with my vision. I had all kinds of things. Now looking back, knowing what I know about CIRS, I definitely know that I probably had CIRS, whatever it was, because I was exposed to mold. I had parasite infection. I had bacterial infection. I was literally all the symptoms you were talking about. I could tick, 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 tick. But I found it very, very helpful, specifically to just calm my brain down because I was constantly scared. I was fight or flight, couldn't sleep, on edge. And what it is, so the folks know, is it's basically, as Alex talked about, repeating mantras that is calming to your brain and your nervous system, the limbic system. And you're supposed to say these, many, many times a day, and in addition to other things, but it's basically to calm that down. And it's so helpful. And I'm so glad it's part of the CIRS protocol. Alex, let's dig into this diet thing a little bit more. You just touched on it. Let's talk about the dairy. The dairy has been a big one in my last couple of podcasts, specifically because you have mentioned you also finally diagnosed your hypothyroidism, not hyper. Mm-hmm. I had an issue where I went from hypo to hyper. It was a little bit of a swinging pendulum, which was all kinds of fun and then that can happen with high oxalate diets, as I found out through Sally and Monique. But speaking this past 2 episodes, if you folks want to go back and listen to my episode that I just had with returning guest Sally Bowers, Carnivore Angel Healing, she healed her Hashis, and she did a lot of stuff where she went into many, many groups and they said, you have to cut out dairy if you want to heal Hashis. And then speaking to Monique, it was very interesting because again, we start talking about dairy and what it can and can't do. And so many interesting tidbits came out on that. I know for me that I found that in high stress situations, I tend to overdo the dairy. And I also note that as much as I love it and as much as it's been good for my digestion, specifically the kefir, it's helped me with my digestion tremendously, that I still do have, as much as I hate to admit it, a little bit of a histamine reaction. I always notice I get a little bit, my brain's not as sharp, a few minutes, after that I have that dairy, typically in the evenings. What are your thoughts now, Alex? I heard you say you're going to try and lower it down. Are there any other changes you're going to try to make as you continue on this way of eating?
I think definitely I've noticed I've had, for two reasons, some pretty significant issues with histamines from like beginning this protocol. One being the mast cell activation syndrome, which happens with a lot of CIRS patients, which I've had extensive issues with. And part of the problem with that is that when those MCAs are activated, a lot of times they will release histamines. And what I've noticed is that on top of the fact that you touched on this, James, realizing that my increase in dairy consumption had suddenly ticked up quite a bit over the past several months, where it had gone from just like a little here and there with meals, like kind of as like a little, side, little bit of cheese or some kefir or things like that, to where I was having like a whole block of cheese or, big cups of milk or tons of yogurt at night, or making, ice creams with just an overwhelming amount of dairy in them. And realizing that it was a big part of that was triggering my histamines, but I was doing that in a stress response. And at the same time, simultaneously, I was telling you, I was having those teeth grinding again, clenched jaw. So these issues of tension in the body and having these histamine releases, but I was also skyrocketing my dairy consumption because it was sort of, it tasted good and it was stress relieving in the moment to eat it. And I do have that sort of, I can't be a moderator that with sugar or anything like that during my carb days. It was almost, I've been having a little bit of those flashbacks of when I couldn't stop eating, was binging on sugary things during those days. A little bit of the same sort of dopamine rush in the brain and trigger with dairy of not being able to keep it to a smaller amount and it feeling very addictive in nature and being used as a tool to relieve stress in the moment. And realizing that, okay, I don't have that same issue with ground beef, or even as much as I love to joke on Instagram about loving sardines, I don't want to binge on cans of sardines. I find those foods very satisfying as part of my diet, but I don't want to just eat them with abandon. Whereas with dairy, it was, again, sort of those flashbacks a bit to some sugar consumption during my vegan days of like, I can just keep going and going and going. But then feeling extreme histamine responses as a result. So I have been starting to calm it down. And even with some replacing it, some of the things I was using, where I would use like dairy yogurt, things like that, with even coconut, because it can be less inflammatory. But eventually kind of I'm dwindling the things down to where the ratio of dairy in my diet, which had increased a lot more as a part of the pie overall than I had originally realized, is now becoming smaller again. I really want my carnivore diet as a part of this foundation phase 2 of this protocol that I'm building, again, for the healthiest, least inflamed version of myself possible, to be much more meat and seafood, again, quality omegas, quality nutrients I'm getting from those foods, to be more focused on that. And again, dairy can come or go in the future as it may. But I've noticed, especially the past couple of weeks, I'll touch on this quickly, that by really, again, viewing food as nutrition and just healing for myself the past several days, doing a lot less dairy. I've been doing things like, again, I always have loved organ meats, but really doing lots of like beef heart for good CoQ10, which helps support. Or I've been eating beef kidney, which again has helped a lot with my selenium and my vitamin B levels. Things like oysters for good zinc. So just, again, looking at those quality sources for the carnivore approach, for me, I know are so crucial to helping my body assimilate nutrients, assimilate these supplements, and eventually binders. It's setting it up for a lot more success than when I'm eating a ton of dairy that I have trouble limiting at the moment, because I am more akin to stress at the moment because of a lot of this work I'm trying to do with the limbic retraining and long-winded response. But it does feel like it isn't supportive to that per se. It adds on more inflammation and stress on my body and also on my mind that I'm just don't think serves me at this point.
You know, Alex, I know I had mentioned offline, joking to you about both of our sort of dairy addiction, because it's absolutely true. My dairy has crept up and crept up. It's very comforting, and dairy
Yeah.
has these casomorphines in it that are addicting in nature, and it's so creamy and it's absolutely delicious. I love it, and it's been a great way for me to put back weight on, because that's what it's
Mhm.
essentially for, to put weight on a baby cow. I talked to
Right.
Monique about
Right.
this, and I joked with you about no dairy February,
I know we
but
both said that.
however, I am also, and this is where I'm going to tie into something else we were talking about. I am also wise enough to know, and this is where we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, is that we're human. We have just admitted that we understand that we may be going a little bit overboard on it, and we're going to make steps to lower that amount. Is it in a perfect world, would we be able to eliminate it completely? Absolutely. It would be a wonderful thing. Will that happen in real life? I have to say I would doubt it for myself. I'm human.
Me too.
I know
I'll
that
be
in the
fully
mornings.
honest. Absolutely.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply, you see me in my pictures on my Instagram, I chop up my cheese into 4 slices and I limit myself. I literally put the cheese away and put it back in the fridge so I
Mhm.
don't have
Mhm.
access to it. Where I've faltered is I bring the bottle of kefir to my breakfast table, and I remember I used to just
Yep.
take 1 or 2 sips. Now I'm like, half the bottle's gone. I'm like, no, no, no. So what I'm going to do is pour out a measured amount. And once that's done, it's done.
Done.
And in the evenings, I have some yogurt. And then what I noticed was I was going back for seconds and even a couple of
Yep.
times thirds of this beautiful, delicious grass-fed yogurt. And I'm just going to have one and done. And I think this is where we have to talk about giving ourselves some grace and understanding that we're human and we're doing the absolute best we can
Yes, we
here.
can.
You know, we've been through so much, Alex, and so many folks are looking at World Carnivore Month, and you see all these people prophetizing that, you must do this and go lion. And if you've made any steps forward, they're just that, they're progress.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. And it's just like you said, the thing that I'm so grateful for both of us is that we viewed this, I think, in a very different way than we would have during our vegan days, where it's like, just go to the biggest extreme you can when you realize you've made a mess up. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to just turn the world over and do a complete no. It's just like I'm doing the same kind of things where at night I used to set out a big block of raw cheese, and I would just keep taking slices of it and then have some of my carnivore ice cream or one of my carnivore muffins I make and just like have it all out there like a platter. And it's just like keep going and going and going, and you don't even realize it. And it's like, no, I can still enjoy these things. And it's not that these things are bad for me or that everything I've done up to this point is wrong, or it's not that it doesn't have to be that complicated. It can literally be, I'm under a lot of stress right now. We both are. We've talked about this. We've shared that life has thrown us some crazy loops, both throughout the years, but especially now. And you're akin and you draw towards trying to relieve that stress in ways you can. And of course, that's going to impact how you eat. And so it's just, again, giving ourselves a little bit of a perspective shift of it's okay. Let's just work on reducing it. It doesn't mean you have to go, like you said, lion everything out the door. How dare you? Because I know that doesn't work for me either. That's not sustainable for me. And I also like to, as we may touch on again, I have an Instagram where I love to share food recipes and making carnivore enjoyable and experimenting in the kitchen and things like that. And that's something that is special to me that I don't want to lose. And that's something too that I'm so grateful to the CIRS group for, because they've said so many times, you don't want to become so just hyper focused on this CIRS protocol that you feel like you lose yourself. Part of it is actually finding joy in like things for me like nature or grounding work or breath work, moving my body in ways that I can, seeing blue skies and cooking, doing things like that also are so important for your mental health and for making you feel capable of healing. And so if you go on an extreme lion diet because you think that'll be the best way forward, but you're miserable, that's likely not going to help either. And so, yes, perspective and keeping that all in perspective is just so important.
Totally agree. I was joking with Monique that we should have like they have World Carnivore Month, that it should be low October. so low. And then, like I said, rather than saying no dairy February, maybe just have low dairy
Low
February.
dairy
You
February.
know,
I
so
love
it's
it.
not all these extremes that we
Yes.
used to have in our past dietary choices. It's just more like, let's just make a cognizant effort to lower things that we know we may have been overdoing rather than just going
Yes.
and cutting it
I'm
all off.
currently doing just a small amount of seasonings January. No.
I love it. Alex, let's go on to the last question, and then I'd like to talk about what you just highlighted and your grounding in nature, because you have a fabulous challenge going on right now that we're going to talk about. But the last question, let's just give this listener a little bit of details on some things that may be helpful. And they ask, do you recommend any supplements for someone who may be dealing with similar issues that we are? And let's just take it from the angle that you're at the stage you are at now in your healing journey. What are you taking, for example, that you find helpful?
It's tough. If you are like, again, everybody, it depends on if you are experiencing CIRS or not, if you've confirmed that. But at this stage for me, I touched on this a number of times. I'm trying to really support my lipids and my cells and that omega-3 to 6 balance, basically getting my body at the cellular level. So the most simple form possible, feeling stronger and supported so that it can handle things like binders. Because it's been so depleted from years of being vegan and malnutrition, all of that, that my ATP, my mitochondria, all those things that create energy in your body have been depleted for so long. And so they're not able to really, again, take on things like binders at this time until they get some support. So I do highly recommend, there's a company called Body Bio, but I've been using they have something called phosphatidylcholine, which again, there's a number of different sources that you can seek out for that, not just them, but their quality. I've done a lot of research and the quality is impeccable, but that is a major, major help for basically getting that, again, lipid support that is needed. So that's a major supplement that I have seen. I've taken so many supplements over the years and also during this protocol and seen no benefit whatsoever. And that is one of the few where I have noticed a difference, is phosphatidylcholine. So that is one that I'm currently focused on right now, taking regularly. Also TUDCA. So which you have also been big on as well, seeing benefits. It's TUDCA, and it is a very, very helpful supplement when it comes to being able to properly digest fats, which I have had issue with chronically since my vegan days, not eating fat for so long or quality protein. My body has struggled for years to be able to handle it. And again, wanting to be able to get as many nutrients as I can into my body as possible right now, I am very focused on TUDCA and then some additional ox bile with that, really helping to, again, support other supplements, which again can be helpful. And I have tried as well our butyrate for this, but I found the TUDCA to be more effective for me. And then L-glutamine also, again, for helping that stomach lining and everything, particularly if you struggle with like acid reflux or GERD, but nothing I found to be as effective as the phosphatidylcholine and TUDCA in combination for both helping with digestion and helping myself, again, be more primed at the cellular level to be able to handle the binders. And then finally, the other two things I will mention are, make sure that your vitamin D levels are in range that they should be, because I live in Florida under the sun. I get amazing amount of sun exposure, probably too much, which that's debatable. But even being in the sun all the time and taking vitamin D, I was still on the lower end of where I needed to be. So I have increased my supplementation, and that's something that is so important. And making sure that your vitamin D are in the right range. Those are all things that are so important. Again, I think at this stage, a stage 2, building the right foundation for your body to be able to handle what would be going on forward in the CIRS protocol.
TUDCA for me, as you know, has been a game changer. We talked a little bit about it last time, and TUDCA's benefits are far reaching. It just
Oh,
isn't
very much
focused
so.
on the gut. There's also neuro benefits with TUDCA. It
Another
is,
reason I'm taking it. Yep.
yeah, it's hugely beneficial. Folks do a YouTube search on TUDCA benefits and a whole bunch of stuff will come out up. And
Plethora.
it's really, really good and a lot of bang for your buck. I'm actually taking one now that has NAC combined with TUDCA.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
N-acetylcysteine, and it's TUDCA and NAC in one pill, and it's really, really great. So I'm finding that helpful. Alex, as we sort of wind down here, I want to touch on what you just talked about, living in Florida and your new challenge that you have going on right now, which is so important. I mean, I look back now and I'm so thankful that I found things like Annie Hopper's method for limbic system retraining. I
Oh,
also
yes.
found people speaking about the benefits of grounding. I found the grounding movie, which I reposted and reminded you of the other day in the group. And what a wonderful thing that was with Clint Ober. And folks
Oh,
should listen to the podcast he just did with Dr. Paul Saladino on the benefits of grounding.
mhm.
What caused you to start this challenge in January and to get it out there? Because folks, you got to join the group on Instagram, and I'll make sure that Alex posts it in her stories again for those listeners after this, because we're going to continue this grounding challenge, I'm sure, aren't we?
Absolutely. So I, again, as part of this, taking a step back, and not to emphasize the CIRS again, I'll stay away from that. But when I was regrouping and realizing how important it was for me to feel like I was in this safe place again and back to my really who I am at my core, part of that safe feeling is also me wanting to feel joy in my environment. And again, I was viewing my environment as so unsafe again that I realized it was making me miserable, and I was not sleeping well. I wasn't viewing, nature the way I normally do. And I wasn't even taking time every day, whether large or small, whatever I had, to prioritize that for myself. And I was just sort of letting it go by the wayside. And I realized that, again, wanting to begin this year on this protocol of healing, the most important thing, I mean, my Instagram itself is Healing by the Sun. The first and foremost thing that I've always stood by is that I never feel better than when I am out just in nature. I'm rooted, I'm planted, and feel in connection with the earth, and am standing under the sun, or if it's not in the sun, with the rain, pouring on my face, of the crazy windy storms we've had lately, experiencing them. But just reminding myself again that I am one small component of this massive, beautiful, complicated world, but it's so beautiful at the especially level of nature, and it teaches me so much. And I had to reconnect with that. So I started, which I hadn't been doing because it'd been getting colder. I wasn't doing barefoot walks on the beach anymore, or even just quick brisk walks out on my bay. I wasn't exposing myself out to nature for small little moments throughout the day. And I wanted to make that a daily practice again, because I could just see how it would totally shift how my day would begin. Or if it was in the middle of my day, how the rest of my day would go, calming me, my anxiety, making, again, that fight or flight mode come down that I'm so susceptible to, eliminating that stress. And it's just the simplest thing in the world. It's doesn't have to be anywhere perfect or special. It can be wherever. And so I started that challenge for myself and anybody that wanted to, that it's 3 parts. One of it is trying to ground for just 10 to 15 minutes a day, wherever you are, getting your feet, if possible, barefoot, on the ground. And many times for me, that's in a little muddy puddle by my by my bay on the dock on the stormy days. And then sometimes it's a beautiful little sandy walk on the beach. But no matter what, I instantly feel better. I feel this switch just flip of I am in connection. I can feel that energy. I can feel like the ions, again, this exchange that's just wild, of feeling a part of the earth that I felt disconnected from. And so it's that grounding piece. And then the second part is a mental or physical or both challenge for yourself for the day. It can be the same one every day or a different one, but something where you're just working on bettering yourself a little bit through a little thing. It can be something as simple as taking the 15 minutes to journal that you know you need to do just because you have too many thoughts in your head, and writing them down will help you. It can be something that, again, for me, it's a work towards starting to eliminate procrastination and putting things off in life that feel too difficult. So even through a little challenge, whether big or small, every day, it just kind of helps with that. And then the final third part of this challenge each day being a health focus. So something that I want to do each day, again, can be the same each day or different. That just is to promote and give myself a little love on this journey. And for me, some days it's something as simple as meal prepping some good, nutritious carnivore food that I know will help nourish me for my busy workday the next day, and taking that little bit of time rather than being stressed like crazy to figure out food the next day, and realizing how important that is and reflecting on it. Or health can be, again, a mental thing for me, making a phone call to my dad, who I have a little business with, and us like working through challenge, but having that actual communication together. It can be small or big, but essentially through these three parts each day of these 30 days of January, or I'm not quite sure, is it 30 or 31? 30 days of the grounding challenge that I'm doing in this month. It's really helped me just realize that small steps can still be actionable steps. And that also beginning with that every day, just little reconnection with nature is game changing for your mental and your physical health. Yeah, if anybody wants to join, I can send the link on my stories, share it, and we would love to. It's just a little support group where we share wins on that daily journey.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Alex, I mean it when I say that our conversations, I really, really enjoy them. And I'm so thankful that you started this grounding challenge, because I have to admit as well that I started my healing journey with grounding religiously. I would take pictures every day of me grounding. Morning, sunrise, I combined, I like to stack habits. So
Yes, me too. We do that with our walks.
yeah.
Weighted walk, listening to the podcast, hydrating, sun exposure, fresh air.
Love to stack habits. And I had actually omitted my sunrise watching and just getting out and sun gazing and being standing on the ground, because, I still do go on my walks, but I, of course, have my hiking shoes on when I do. So now the challenge that you started really got me back to the foundation of taking my shoes off. And I don't really generally wear shoes during the day if I can help it. And then really making a concerted effort to get outside. And the benefits are so noticeable when you're outside
You feel
and you're
them
grounded.
instantly.
Yeah.
That's the most powerful thing, I think.
And folks, as I mentioned to you, Alex Ball, her Instagram is at Healing by the Sun, but you will know that already if you've listened to our prior podcasts. And folks, when I tell you don't follow me for my carnivore meals, you have to follow this young lady here, because I tell you every time that we do this, and she touched on it earlier, just follow what she does and the food. She makes the carnivore meals look so delicious and glamorous. I don't know whether the camera, the food, the talent, if she's not going to become a chef and do a cookbook, I don't know what's happening here, Alex. I mean,
Patter of the heart.
I'm telling you, even Equip Foods, who we are both affiliates for, I see your name being mentioned on emails and Healing by the Sun. I'm like, tell me what I don't know already. This lady's got it going on, and how important that is for you is that little piece where you enjoy doing the recipes, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we have to have outlets like that again bring us joy and connection, and that's what it's brought to me. I've been so grateful with, is people saying like, hey, where can I find this recipe? Or well, how did you create this? Or when are you going to post this? And it brings a smile to my face. And I'm just so thankful that people have been receptive to that and have enjoyed it as well, because it sure is fun for me. And I'm sure Equip Foods, like you said, is probably ready to slap me from how much I badger them with all my recipes. But it's wonderful too, because I think it also emphasizes that I try to emphasize with my recipes that you don't have to have 100 ingredients and all of these. It can be simple. And even with some of the baked things or stuff like that, it doesn't have to be too complicated, and you can have some fun with it. And for usually me, it's a lot of experimentation that is trial and error at the end of the day that happens to work out well.
I'm telling you, folks, I don't eat a ton of sardines. Alex has got me beat there. But when you start getting me looking at sardines and going, dang, that looks really good, I know that you're doing
I've
good
got to
work.
get you eating a carnivore chaffle with some sardine salad on the inside. And I think it would convince you otherwise from them being a standoffish.
I bet you it would. And like I said, folks, I'll make sure to put the handle down in the show notes again. Alex Ball, I mean it when I said it. It's a joy. It's an honor. It's a privilege when we come together and share our experiences. It's powerful for ourselves. It's cathartic. And it's also, I hope, beneficial for the listeners. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day once again to share your journey and to be real and honest and open.
Oh, I can't tell you. The pleasure is all mine. As you know, this just means the world for me to be able to share. And for us, again, being kindred souls, having gone through a lot of the same struggles, to be able to hopefully share and provide some insight to people that you can get through things like feeling stuck and trapped, and whether it's a vegan diet or health challenges, whatever it is. Again, I just couldn't be more grateful to be able to share with you on this platform on that. So thank you.
Till the next time, Alex Ball, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Carnivorist Chats. If you've made it this far, I want to say thank you for listening, and also thank you in advance for liking, subscribing, or sharing this episode. Thanks again to Equip Foods, Carnivore Snacks, and the Carnivore Bar. Don't forget to check the link in the show notes to get a discount on their products. Until the next time, be well,